Hey, we're back at Sidebar. We have Sonalie Figueiras here with us from Green Queen Media. You run an impact media platform and you advocate for social and environmental good. Tell us about Green Queen Media and what you do.
Absolutely. So we're the first and largest sustainability media out of Asia. We started over a decade ago. We've evolved into being the main food and climate media. So the real impact of what we're trying to do is to advance food in the climate conversation from Asia to the world. Our readership is now global, actually 50% in the US, which is exactly where we wanted it to go because we want to help change the conversation and make it more diverse around food systems. As you know, Asia is where the majority of our population growth is going to come from, and the majority of our food production needs and increase in protein demand is going to come from. So it's incredibly important for the Asian voice and Asian startups and Asian innovation to have a voice at the future food table. At the same time, it's just still food on the climate landscape is still not important enough. That's been covered throughout Verge's event. It's getting better, but it's only the first COP coming up with 2 days on food. Last year was only 1 day. We're still really getting to terms with the fact that food is 1/3 of all global emissions. And so my job is every day as the editor, I'm helping curate the content as to what will be the most impactful to really advance that food and climate conversation.
So what does success look like for you as a social impact entrepreneur?
Well, I'm in the media business. So for me, it really is about audience engagement and audience growth. It's a little tricky to have a media based in English in Asia and then trying to go global. So I navigate kind of the difficulties of that. Success would be, our newsletter read by, 500,000 people, because what I'm really trying to do, our audience tends to be people who have power in their jobs. Either they are execs and corporate professionals, or they are investors, or they are founders, or we have a lot of also researchers and policymakers. So for me, as long as I'm providing well-written, thoughtful, fact-checked information that can help people make decisions in the food and climate space, that's successful to me. So when people come to me and say, my idea got funded, or I rethought about how we're looking at this policy because of an article, or this inspired me to kind of change my career and go into food and climate, that's the kind of success that I'm looking for, that impact.
That sounds very similar to some of the success factors that we have at GreenBiz Group.
There are parallels, for sure.
So you're based in Hong Kong. Can you tell us, how does the landscape in Asia for a media company differ from other parts of the world, from the US or Europe? How does it compare?
That's a really great question. It is actually quite different. Asia straddles two types of media. You have the local media in each kind of region and country, which is in its own language, which I am not really as much part of because I'm in English language media. And then you have the English language media, which tends to be more international and kind of echoes some of the more mainstream European and US media themes. I would say the media overall, especially around climate and sustainability and business, is maybe less polarized, less politicized, certainly at the English level. That's different on a local language level. However, there are other complications. We have fewer truth in advertising laws. So there's a lot of kind of gray areas over sponsored content versus editorial. There are certain places where investigative journalism is difficult to conduct because of the political system. So it's a mix of both less polarized, but also sometimes more vanilla.
And how do you navigate that?
It's been an interesting challenge for us because, as you may know, Hong Kong recently had the passing of what we call the national security law that came from the Hong Kong administration via China. And that is very clear that we have to be more careful in what we report on. What I tend to cover around food and climate doesn't tend to be as impacted, but I do have to be careful about certain subjects around, ethical labor and manufacturing and things that I was maybe covering before and not. So far, climate reporting has not been affected, but in other parts of Asia, the climate story is having issues. For example, in Vietnam, climate activists are being arrested. And so that has my concern is that within 5 to 10 years, will climate become a story that Asian economies fight against because it's there's a tension between the growth they want to see and the degrowth needed for climate?
This is fascinating stuff, and I wish we had more time to talk with Sonalie Figueiras of Green Queen Media about this. We're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us at the Sidebar.
Thank you so much.